have to say I'm very honored to receive this Millionaire of the Year award 25 years after my son Eitan was given this award. Some of you may remember that day, so I'm very proud to walk in his footsteps. I might add that I think he was given the award not only for his loyal attendance at Minyan when he was 3 and 4 years old before he started day school and the bus schedule interrupted, he couldn't come to Minyan here anymore. But I think he was given the award really because he was so successful in fundraising. I mean, some of you may remember he would carry around the pushka every morning. He would actually take it to people. There was no way you could turn Eitan down when he came to you with the pushka. I want to share a story with you this morning. A story about Abba Kovner. I'm sure some of you have heard of him. He was the famous Jewish resistance fighter in Europe during World War II. And he tells the following story about making Aliyah at the end of the war. I quote, "During the first week of my arrival in Israel, before the state was declared in the War of Independence, I found myself at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. I stood a stride back from the wall and its hallowed stones and felt that I didn't belong there. I belonged to a different secular society and presence. I took a step backwards as though to leave. Suddenly, I felt someone tug at my sleeve. He asked me to join a minyan that was then forming for prayer. I put on a hat, joined the minyan, and even prayed the afternoon prayers with the others. And I was suddenly inspired, not by the prayers so much, as by the sense of belonging. This is the Jewish thing, to be one of the minyan, to know that 9 can't do it without the 10th person, and that the 10th person is powerless without the other 9. Perhaps that is the core lesson of Judaism." When I was a graduate student living in Boston and returning to my Jewish roots after many years of alienation and separation, I decided to go to a Friday night service at a synagogue on the edge of the North End, the old North End of Boston, not far from Beacon Hill. Shabbat services had been advertised for 8 o'clock in the evening in the Harvard student newspaper. My friend and I took the red line to the T-stop closest to the synagogue, but somehow we got lost and didn't walk into the synagogue until 8:30, a half hour after the services were supposed to begin. We walked into the presence of 8 old men sitting in silence, waiting for the minyan in order to begin the service. My friend and I were the 9th and the 10th. That sense of being needed by the community was seminal in my return to Judaism. Never again did I feel that I could stand apart from the Jewish community, knowing that I was needed as the 10th in the minyan. Ever since that Friday evening in that little Boston synagogue, the daily minyan has been a central part of my life. It has shaped my daily morning schedule, and it now shapes my consideration of where I will live when I retire. I can't imagine my life without a minyan nearby. In part, the minyan is important to me because I feel the importance of being there to count for and to comfort by my presence those who are saying Kaddish. And I remain ever grateful that the minyan was here for me 2 years ago when my parents died within a few weeks of each other. And I also know that so many of you who are here this morning feel that same gratitude to the minyan here at HJC for being here when you were saying Kaddish for a parent or another member of your family. But I think the specialness of the minyan also comes from the regulars who are not here specifically to say Kaddish. These regulars in our synagogue make up a club with an open membership. Each new arrival at the minyan is welcomed openly and ensures the club's survival. The minyan is a community within our community in which the regulars share the daily details of their lives, the ups and downs of family life, the frustrations of the commute or the weather, vacation plans, birthdays, midlife warrior exploits on the basketball court, and the ease or difficulty of having made the number 10 for any particular minyan. The ordinary details of life become extraordinary at the minyan because those of us who are in the minyan care about each other. Use the word family, Tom, which I think is a very apt word. And thus the minute details of the mundane are transformed in the minyan into the significant details of the sacred. For me, there are so many memories of the daily interactions in the minyan that I will always carry within my soul. Here are just a few moments of individuals and details from the past 31 years. Al Khan, Zichrono Livracha, who was our second Minyaner of the Year honoree. Al began the minyan every morning and led the service with a beautiful voice and fluent Hebrew. He was always on time for the minyan, and I learned years later that his hobby was repairing antique clocks. Perhaps that had something to do with his punctuality. My third year in the congregation, when we began a Hebrew literacy program, I noticed that Al had registered for the program. I explained to him that the program was for those who had never learned Hebrew and not for people like himself who were fluent in the language. Al said to me, "Rabbi, I can't read a letter of Hebrew. I learned the davening by going to minyan every day with my father, but I lead the service from memory every morning." I remember our system of minyan coordinators for each day of the week before Tom took over the overall coordination. Eliza Gottesman was our only female minyan coordinator. I recall Joe Karim, Zichrono Livracha, who read the Megillah every year on the morning of Purim at minyan at breakneck speed. We still haven't found a replacement reader of Megillat Esther for him. In the old days, we always had schnapps with the grape juice after the minyan at the kiddushes for the bar bat mitzvahs and special occasions. There was only one person who ever touched the liquor as opposed to the grape juice, Hai Pump. When Hai died, I figured we could get rid of the liquor. But then his petite widow, Yetta Pump, started coming to the minyan and not only occupied his seat, the seat in which Hai once sat, but would also have that glass of schnapps at the end of the minyan. Only when Yetta died did we finally dispose of our stash of liquor, since there were no more takers. I remember the days when no matter how early I would arrive at minyan, there would be one car in the parking lot before I got there. I think it was green, and it belonged to Gene Lakin, Zichrono Livracha. I don't know what time Gene arrived here in the morning, but I sometimes imagine that he spent the night in his car here. I once asked him why he came so early. He told me that in part it was because he had once been a baker earlier in his life, and he was used to getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to work. In later years, he said he came early because he couldn't sleep, and better to fall back to sleep in the parking lot at HJC where someone would wake him for the minyan, rather than to go to sleep back home and miss the minyan. At the end of every summer, Gene would bring me honey from a farm in upstate New York so that Lisa could use it to make teglach on Rosh Hashanah. Gene was not the only early bird. Before him, Larry Schechter, Zichrono Livracha, was here every morning before anyone else and would be the first in the door when the custodian unlocked it. Norman Gordon owned a cleaner's business and sat on the left side of the Leaf Chapel as you came in. And every year, about a month before Rosh Hashanah, he would remind me that the Tali Tot in the Leaf Chapel and the main sanctuary, as well as that clerical robe I used to wear, all needed a cleaning, and he would take care of it. Bob Main, Zichrono Livracha, who after Al Khan died, would begin the morning minyan every day in his beautiful old world accent. Pesach, I think his last name was Nadav, Pesach Nadav. Nadav. Pesach Nadav, who was a somewhat frail elderly Russian gentleman, came to minyan for many years until his death and said Kaddish every day he was here. I once asked him for whom he was saying Kaddish, since I was not aware of anyone who had died recently in his family. He told me he was saying Kaddish for himself because he was not convinced that any of his children would say it in memory of him after he died. Perhaps that was the saddest statement I heard in all my years as a rabbi. One of my happiest associations with the minyan is all the mornings that Selma and Paul Greenstein have been together here at morning minyan. Paul always gives his mother a kiss, and it always strikes me as nice that they see each other at the start of each day at the minyan. Continuing with happy memories, Yari and Kobe Boxer-Kaplowitz, and now Nina, are here most Sunday mornings with their mother Tracy, and add so much life and conversation to the minyan. They've become the next generation of tzedakah collectors here at the minyan. Lester Fox, who each Sunday morning would let Eitan, who was only 4 or 5 at the time, drive Lester's car from the Minyan back to our house. So you know, Eitan now works for JetBlue. He was always fascinated by cars, trains, and airplanes. Eitan would sit in Lester's lap and steer the car the wrong way up the synagogue back driveway, even though he could hardly see over the dashboard. But it was always the highlight of his day. These are just some of the vivid memories I have of the Minyan. And let me say lastly that even though you are honoring me this morning, the real honor is yours. I only count as one person in the Minyan. The Minyan needs 10, and most mornings we have 10 because you are all here. This honor today means a great deal to me, but as your rabbi, I want to honor all of you and thank you for your support over the years of the Minyan. It is so good and heartwarming to see you all gathered here this morning. And there's so much history in this room that spans the 31 years that I have been part of the Minyan. And a special thank you to you, Tom, who for so many years has coordinated the Minyan and made sure that we would have 10 people here in the morning. No easy task. Let me finish by completing the story of Abba Kovner, with which I began my remarks. Many years after Abba Kovner was called at the kotel by that tug on his sleeve to be the 10th for the Minyan, a museum known as Beit HaTfutzot, the Museum of the Diaspora, was built in Tel Aviv. It's a marvelous museum, and next time you're in Israel, whether or not you visited it in the past, a lot has changed there. I recommend you see it. If you haven't, you go back if you've been there before. Abba Kovner designed a corner in the museum that's known as the Minyan. He created a variety of wax figures representing the wide variety of Jewish communities throughout the world praying together. Just before the museum opened its doors for the first time, someone noticed that there were only 9 wax figures and pointed out there needed to be 10 for this exhibit to represent the Minyan. The museum frantically reached out to Kovner about this last-minute emergency, but Kovner calmly responded that the 9 figures were the correct number. There was supposed to be a missing person. That missing person was a call to each person who visited the museum to become the 10th for the Minyan, to remember that no Jew can survive without the community. To survive as a community, we always need the 10th for the Minyan. I've been honored during these past 31 years to be a part of the HJC Minyan. I have been happy to do my part to support the Minyan by being counted as one of the 10, and by doing everything that I could to strengthen the Minyan. I know that long after I depart, the morning Minyan will continue to live on. We will always be searching for the 10th person for the Minyan. But I know that when you feel that tug on your sleeve, that each of you who is here this morning will heed that call to be the 10th in the Minyan. Thank you very much.